Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Advanced Research Methodology, Lecture 4. For those of you who have missed our lectures, you can view the recording of the previous lectures in the channel that I provided the link, Dr. Yusuf TV. So all the classes are recorded and will be recorded, and you can still view it in case you need to view it in case there are certain things that you don't really understand. You can still view the video, and if you have any questions, you can ask me in the WhatsApp group. Another thing is, I hope everybody register for this class. Mr. Hamza, have you registered for this class?
Yes, I registered.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes, I did.
Prof, excuse me.
Sure. Ibu Tuti, go ahead.
Yeah, last week you said that we have to key in our portal, but we don't know how to key in the portal. Can you tell us the way of the process?
Dr. Sufyan, can you share? Because I cannot get access to students portal. Can someone share how to register for this class? Mr. Masri, can you share how students can register for this class? There are still some students who don't know how to register. Anybody?
Oh.
Maybe we discuss in the group, Ibu Tuti, how to register.
Okay.
You can ask the questions, and maybe there are some students.
Prof, I'm using my phone, so it's kind of difficult for me to open up the portal. But again, Dr. Yusuf, I think if all the students are active, there is one shortcut or easy way to register. Is simply you can use your own staff portal. There is a special what we call function which you can register for them.
Okay.
Not even a minute to register. Like it's very fast.
Okay, I will do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can use even my own portal. I mean staff portal, but mine is using the what we call university connection, so I cannot access from the home.
I see.
Maybe, inshallah, by your permission, tomorrow I can simply help them to register.
Okay, let's do this. Those who have not registered, those who have not registered and want to register, right? So please list your name, put your name in the WhatsApp group so that we can help you to register. As I mentioned before, you have a choice whether to register for this class or not. You can apply for exemption if you have taken this class at master's or PhD level within 5 years. Otherwise, you have no choice. You have to take this class. So please list your names for those of you who have not registered, so that we can help you to register for the class. list your name in the WhatsApp group MFQ 8113 Dr. Yusuf. Okay. Any other question? And another thing is about the assignment. For assignment 1, I will put it in black and white, but for now, like I mentioned before, for assignment 1, it's quite simple. It is 20% of the assessment. You just write the initial plan of the topic, of your topic, right? The initial plan of your topic consists of overview, background of the study, problem statement, research question, research objective, scope of the study, contributions of the study, significance of the study, literature review, and research methodology. It's just a brief explanation on these subtopics. You can submit. You can submit within 2 weeks. You can submit on the 14th of August. Okay, just the initial plan. Later I will put it in writing, but I think I have explained it previously. Any question on the assignment? It's no more than 20 pages. It's less than 20 pages. Okay, any question regarding assignment 1?
Okay. Can I ask, Prof?
Sure.
Okay, I don't know about assignment 1. Is it for the whole of us, the whole class? Or?
For those who register for this class, have you registered for this class?
Yes, I did.
Okay, for those of you who have presented colloquium 1, okay, you just submit the draft that you submitted in colloquium 1.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually our assignment 1.
Okay.
Whatever the initial plan that you presented in the colloquium 1. So for Mr. Hamzah, you are settled. Just submit the materials that you submitted in colloquium 1. So for those of you who have successfully passed colloquium 1, you can submit the draft or the materials that you submitted in colloquium 1. Okay, so that's your assignment 1. And I will check and I will give you the grade. And if any, I will make comments. Yes, if necessary.
Prof, can we have that kind of guidance, because I never seen this one.
Okay, I'll put it in black and white, but I think we discussed it in the previous lecture. After the class, I will put it in black and white.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, today's topic is how to write chapter 1 of your thesis. So usually chapter 1 is called the introduction chapter, right?
Yeah.
And we can start with overview. Overview is written to give the readers a prior knowledge or overview of the topic that you're going to write. This is an example of the overview of your thesis, right? You explain about what you are going to write in chapter 1. Okay, for example, this chapter describes the background of the study, problem statement, research question, research objectives, the scope of the study, the significance of the study, contributions of study, and limitations of the study. So Ibu Tuti, these are part of your assignment 1. You write about the background of the study, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Problem statement.
Problem statement,
Okay.
yes, I have. I submitted in Bahasa Indonesia at the time, but now I'm thinking about to translate it into English.
Better. It's better
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm in the process of translating. Now
Right.
it's still up to number 1.3, 2 or 3.
Good. So to answer your question, your assignment 1 consists of these subtopics: the background of the study,
Yeah.
problem statement,
Mhm.
research questions, research objectives, scope of
Yeah.
the study, significance of the study,
Yeah.
contributions of the study, limitations of the study, and you can add literature review and research methodology. But in brief, all in all should be less than 20 pages.
Less than 20.
Less than 20 pages.
Oh, okay.
Not much.
I thought it minimal. I thought minimal 20.
No,
So I'm
less.
trying. I'm trying to make long sentences becoming like
That is for assignment 2 that we will discuss later. Now we are going.
Okay.
Now we
Oh
are
my goodness,
discussing
ya Allah.
assignment 1. It
Oh,
should
ya
be very
Allah.
brief, simple, straightforward. It's
Yeah,
for the
because I thought it is. Oh my goodness.
it's just the
I'm
initial
trying
plan.
to.
It's just
Yeah,
the
yeah,
initial
yeah,
plan,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But this thesis.
Prof. Yusuf,
Sure, go
Yusuf,
ahead. Go ahead.
in the colloquium 1, the initial plan, is it included the research design or research method? I thought it's already included until up to literature review.
No, up to
Good
number.
question. Good
Please
question.
confirm.
Last time we didn't ask the students to write on literature review and research methodology for colloquium 1, but this time we would like to ask the students to write just a little bit on research methodology. On literature review. Not much. 5, 6, 7 previous studies that you have reviewed. So not much, 5 or 6 literature review, not the complete chapter on literature review. In fact, for colloquium 1, you don't have to make it into chapters. There's no chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3 yet. It's just this subtopic.
Okay.
So perhaps you can do literature review on 5 or 6 journals, or 1 or 2 research. And for the research method, you don't need to write in detail. Just write, for example, this study will use a quantitative approach, for example, using PLSM, just for example. Or if you do qualitative research, okay, you just mention this study uses a qualitative approach using interview and participant observation. Very simple explanation, nothing detailed. So that we just want to check whether your research method is in line with your research questions and your research objective. And we want to see whether you want to go for quanti or quali. Or like we discussed before, you can also go for the mixed method approach, where you combine the quanti with quali. Or you can start quali and complement with quanti. So just a very short writing on literature review, like I said, 5 or 6 should be enough. And simple writing on the method that you are going to use, whether it's quanti or quali or mixed method, just a few paragraphs, not much. Good question. Okay. Any other question?
Prof, excuse me, Prof, you know, when we do research, you know, I believe you all agree with me that very difficult to do it because of the COVID, yeah. There is a challenges. And when we send the questionnaire, whatever, I mean, particularly for mine is for the qualitative, usually people very very lazy or very it's not too kind to answer, you know, long sentences, you know, while now meeting with people is very difficult. This is also I mentioned in my proposal.
In your limitation of the study.
Yeah, limitation of the study, right? You know, can we, you know, develop a question which is actually similar, like little similar like quanti, kind of like survey. So the answer has already been guided. I mean, you know, it's not the answer. It's not like yes or no, but there is a sentence which people can choose. So this is it's not open-ended then. So it's a little bit close-ended. Yeah. But this is quali. So I'm thinking about that because, you know, we cannot, I mean, at this moment, we have to be creative, you know, not stick to the theoretical because of the situation. That's why we have to be PhD. So, you know, when, who knows, yeah, Prof. Yusuf, therefore can develop a sentence that, you know, research method now it's not to be stick for the theory, but we find new theory, which is qualitative, can be done through quantitative with, you know, guided question, guided answer, but will be evaluated in the qualitative method. So what's about that? This is a creativity. This is innovation.
Yes, good question. Actually, whether you do quanti or quali during this pandemic time is challenging. It's challenging in terms of collecting the data, right? For example, if you do quantitative research, the challenges are number one. For example, if you do questionnaire, of course you cannot go for the conventional way of distributing the questionnaire. You cannot meet the respondents, right?
Yeah.
So what you do is you write your questionnaire, of course, after the validation, after testing for reliability and validity of the questionnaire, then you convert your questionnaire into Google form, right?
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
you distribute the questionnaires using certain appropriate channels.
Mhm.
For example, your respondents are university students, right?
Mhm.
Then you convert your questionnaire into Google form, right? And then you can distribute to WhatsApp group or
Yeah.
emails of students of
Yeah.
the universities that you choose. The question of randomization will arise. Then you need to explain how you, what kind of techniques that you use. Simple random sampling, stratified sampling, cluster sampling, uh, convenience sampling, or any type of sampling that you choose must be explained. Right, so that's a challenge in quantitative analysis. In a qualitative analysis, for example, there are also challenges. Of course, during this COVID, you cannot do participant observation.
Mhm.
You cannot do even non-participant observation.
Mhm.
You cannot do the interview,
Mm-hmm.
face-to-face interview, right? So like you said, is there any creative ways? Right, yes, of course. There are many creative ways. For example, Ibu Tuti, you want to use interview, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so if you want to use interview, the first thing you need to do is to have what we call interview protocol. This was discussed in the
Interview
last
protocol.
this was discussed in the last lecture. You can search Google, okay, interview protocol. What are interview protocols? Basically, interview protocols consist of the set of questions similar to questionnaire in quantitative theory. Questionnaire, you have set of items, right? For the
Mhm.
construct is in your questionnaire. Similarly, if you do qualitative, you also need to have a set of questions we call questionnaire protocols. And these questionnaire protocols also must go through the process of or the test of reliability and validity. So you need to consult with your supervisor, right? How to do the face validity, content validity, and how to do how to test whether the questionnaire protocols are valid and reliable, right? Then you need to, the challenge is to make an appointment with the interviewees, right? Or with the respondents. So if your interviewees are VIP, that's another challenge. They are busy. So I think the most challenge is to find the suitable time. As regards with the interview, nowadays I think it shouldn't be a problem. You can interview using any kind of means. It can be using telephone, using video call and using Zoom. So it shouldn't be a problem. You just Zoom or you use Google Meet or any other ways, right? Any other means, and you just ask questions and record. Okay? Record the interview. Ask permission from the interviewees to record your interview and explain to him or to her that the interview is confidential. It's not going to be public. It has to be recorded for the purpose of the researcher to transcribe, right? To transcribe the conversation. You need to do the transcription, and then later on you need to analyze the data. So that is a challenge. Other than that,
Yeah, that's
it's-
true.
other
Very
than that, I
difficult.
think
Because, you know, yeah.
other than that, I think it should be okay. So the problem, I think, like Ibu Tuti said, is to find a suitable time to, to arrange the appointment
Mhm.
for the interviewees. If you can set the time suitable for them, it shouldn't be a problem. You don't have to interview face to face, but you can interview using Zoom or Google Meet or whatever. But you have to come up with a good interview protocols. We will touch in more detail about interview
Okay.
protocols when we discuss the research method. Okay. So today's topic is just
Yeah.
on things that you need to write for the assignment 1, right? So first, you need to write a little bit on the background of the study. Okay, background of the study basically gives the reader the background, right, of the topic that you want to study. For example, this research is about zakat. So background of the study consists of the roles of zakat, right? The roles of zakat in Islamic fiscal policy. So anything as a background to the topic that you want to study. Then, so these are the backgrounds regarding the topic of the study, right? So these are the backgrounds of the concept of zakat, the chronology of the management of zakat from the early years of Islamic government up until now, the mentions of zakat in the Quran. Okay, so anything related to the topic, right? So it shouldn't be that difficult. You can be creative. You can write anything to introduce the readers about the topic that you are going to write. It doesn't have to be this long for assignment 1. Okay, it should be simple, 1 or 2 paragraphs, enough. All right, then problem statement. This is an example of a complete problem statement, but again, for your assignment 1, it should be very simple problem statement. Can you give me a couple of minutes? In the meantime, think about questions that you want to ask.
Prof. Yusuf, I ask
Yes, I'm back.
you a question. So sorry.
Sure. Go ahead.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
About problem statement. Yeah, about problem statement. If I write with research question, is it possible? It can equal with problem statement.
Oh, very good
Research
question.
question.
Okay, very good question. So what's the difference between problem statement and research question, right? Okay, very good question.
That's the point that I asked you.
Yes, yes. So what is a problem statement? Before we answer that question, we need to understand what is a problem. What is the meaning of a problem, right? And before we answer the question of what is the meaning of problem, we need to understand that there are two kinds of research. Problem differs according to the types of research that researchers want to do. Like we discussed in the previous lectures, there are two types of research. One is a pure research, and the other one is applied research. According to pure research, a problem is something that researchers want to explore, which is beyond our boundary of knowledge. Okay, so for any topics that we choose, there are limits of knowledge, or we call boundary of knowledge. Means what researchers have done and what we already know about the topic. So in pure research, there are two things. One is the boundary of knowledge. The other one is beyond the boundary of knowledge. Boundary of knowledge refers to what is already known about the topic. The beyond the boundary of knowledge, outside the boundary of knowledge, refers to something which is unknown, right? Something which is unknown. So in problem statement, in a pure research, we want to discuss the problem. We want to make a statement about the problem. So the problem, according to pure research, is something which is beyond the boundary of knowledge, which requires a study, which requires a research. My professor said we want to go to a place where no one has gone before, meaning we want to study something to extend the boundary of knowledge which have not been studied before. Meaning, in a pure research, we want to come up with a contribution, right? A contribution in pure research is to come up with new findings, okay, or new empirical evidence that extend our boundary of knowledge. So that is what we want to write in the problem statement for pure research, right? And another type of research is called applied research. Applied research aims at finding the issues or the problems of the real world, the problems that exist in the real world. We call actual problems, right? And aims at finding solutions to the real world problems. So for applied research, researchers need a real world problem. If there is no real world problems, there is no need to do the applied research, right? So researchers in the applied research will find the issues or the problems that exist in the real world with the aim of finding the solutions. That's a problem statement for the applied research. Some researchers, they combine both problem statement from the perspective of pure research and applied research. That is a problem statement. The other thing is research questions. Research questions are different from problem statement. Okay, like we discussed in previous lectures, research questions refer to the questions that the researchers want to answer. So what are the questions that the researchers want to answer? How researchers come up with the research questions, right? How do we come up with research questions? So in order to come up with research questions, we have to come up with what your research intends to answer. Okay, this is a research question. How do we write good research questions? We have to think about what questions that we want to answer at the end of our study, right? At the end of our thesis, what questions we want to answer. For example, in this thesis, research questions number 1, does attitude have an influence on intention, right? So that is the question that we want to answer at the end of the research. So at the end of the research, this researcher must come up with data, right? Must analyze data and must come up with empirical evidence to support or to answer these research questions, right? So in this case, this researcher has 6 research questions. So in chapter 4, in the research findings, the study must answer all these research questions by providing suitable data, okay, collecting, analyzing, and providing empirical evidence to answer these questions. So in chapter 4, this researcher must provide empirical evidence to answer this question. Does attitude have an influence on intention? So in order to write research questions, you must make sure that the questions that you write here can be answered. At the end of your study. Okay. Interestingly, research questions and research objectives are like the mirror image of each other. Research questions are the questions that the researchers want to answer using the empirical evidence, right? You have to have the data, you have to analyze the data, whether the data is quanti or quali. So the researcher needs to decide. Interestingly, research questions and research objectives, if we write it down, it's kind of a mirror image of each other. For example, your research question, does attitude have an influence on intention? Right? And your research objective is to examine the influence of attitude on intention. So research objectives are the aims or the purpose of the research that the researchers want to achieve. Let me repeat. The research objectives are the aims, the objectives, the targets of the research that the researchers want to achieve at the end of the study. So in this case, the researcher must come up with the data, analyze data, get the empirical evidence, and determine whether the researcher is able to achieve the objective or not. For example, the objective is to examine the influence of attitude on intention. So in chapter 4, the researcher needs to elaborate on whether this objective is achieved or not. All right. Ibu Susi. Did I answer your question? Dr. Sufyan, you want to add something more? Anything you want to add? Because it'd be interesting. It is boring if it's a one-way traffic.
Okay. Okay, Prof, can I add something?
Sure, go
Yeah,
ahead.
Professor. So sorry. I want to continue about my question with you. Is it possible?
Sure, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Based on my research study at my
Your
alma
topic.
mater, when I was a student at Faculty of Law, University of Indonesia.
Can you speak
About
louder? I cannot hear
social
you very well.
science. Yeah.
Ibu
So sorry
Mutiara.
because I have a problem with my. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Based on the social science methods, research method in our research methodology, we have two ways to do research: library research and empirical research.
Okay.
Based on my knowledge and my lesson from our lecturer at
Right.
research
That's-
methodologies.
That is correct. Yes.
Library research is we look for, we explore, we read, and we analysis of all of regulation, act, law, and everything, a constitution,
Yes.
everything related to our research topic, and
Yes.
that as a legal resource of our topic. And empirical
Right.
research is research that we down to the earth, we go to the empirical with the field research, and we can as a participation research.
Right.
We for example, we do as a part of a community. If we want to analyze or we want to make a research about how about the behavior, about the customs in a certain social community. And
Right.
now
Right.
I have a new knowledge from you this morning about two ways of methodology of research. So the things that I want to know from you, is it equal or not?
Good
Library
question.
research
Okay.
and empirical research.
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
Please,
I
so
got your
sorry if
question.
I have a mistake with my opinion.
Yes, Ibu Mutiara. Hopefully, Allah will grant you speedy recovery. Hope you will do well.
Thank you, Prof. Now I'm still recovery and still tackle with much of expert from medical way, from non-medical, and yeah, only Allah can help me and make me in a better condition with my heart. Thank you, Professor.
Inshallah. Inshallah. What you said is correct. You're talking about the types of data, right? In research, we have two types of data. One is called primary data, and the other one is called secondary data that we will discuss in later chapters. All right. So regarding the law, I believe you are from the law background, right? So
yes, Professor, exactly.
Right. Yeah. So from the perspective of law, there are two types of data that you can collect. One is called
Yeah,
primary data.
primary and secondary.
Primary data is the data that the researchers collects himself, right? For the purpose of answering the research question and for the purpose of achieving the research objective. Right. What you said was correct. So in law, the researcher can do the field study, observations, for example, attend the court proceedings, right? Field study, okay, to study a certain case. That is called the primary data. And researchers also can use the secondary data called library research. Okay, there are other names to library research. Some people call it documentations. Some people call it a library research. What does it mean?
Yeah.
Library research or documentation refers to collecting the data, collecting the secondary type of data, means the data collected by other people or other lecturers. For example, in the field of law, you can do library research on the previous court cases, right? Court cases in the US, in other countries, in Malaysia. So you can refer to library research or documentations, which means the compilation of the court cases. So that is called the secondary data. And some research, they adopt the secondary type of data, because in law, I believe, there are many data, for example, court cases, proceedings, precedent cases that you can get from documentation, right? If that is enough, then you can use it to, if that is enough to answer your research questions and research objective, then it's all right. Some people use it primary data, where they attend the court proceedings themselves and they make observations, or they can do the field study. So Ibu Mutiara, you are right, but
Yeah.
I think you are very much advanced. We have not touched the topic of primary and secondary data yet. All right.
Yeah.
Did I answer your
And
question?
I remember that.
Okay.
I remember that about this case, about this question. I have a legal research method from my doctorate program at Faculty of Law, legal research methods, and is it possible I applied in my
Sure.
thesis at UNISHAMS?
Sure.
Because I will make a research about the role of Basarnas in Indonesia, and I want to compare it with Kuala Lumpur Arbitration National at Kuala Lumpur. So I will use a comparative study between Indonesia and Malaysia.
And you will use a library
As a
research.
method to analyze.
And you will use a library research, right? Or documentation.
Yes, a library and empirical research, field research. I will go to Malaysia if is it possible if lockdown has finished, will be finished in the future. I hope so. I can make a research to the Malaysia to make a comparative study for my research topic in this doctorate program. Thank you.
Right now, unfortunately, it's not possible to for example, to attend any court proceedings, or
because of pandemic.
Yeah, because of the pandemic. Yeah, but hopefully,
and Malaysia is
inshallah,
locked down from Indonesia. Malaysia is a lockdown.
We are in the lockdown. But if you need to do, for example, expert interview, right? Some people even in the field of law, they need to do expert interview. For example, interview certain lawyers or experts in the topic, in the certain topic of law, right? That can be done by using, virtual interview. That can be done. But to attend any court proceedings, come face to face is impossible at this time. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Sure.
to do expert interview, no problem, because
Virtual consultation.
I've seen
Virtual
some
consultation.
I've seen some research in the field of law where they use documentation and also expert interview, where they arrange the interview with experts in certain topics of the law, right? So that is possible.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, good question.
And now I'm still identifying about the expert of this area, this topic, this case in Indonesian circumstance, in Indonesian point of view. But I'm not sure if I can identify about this from Malaysian point of view, because now I don't know about who the expert about this topic from UNICEF or from Malaysia. I just now I'm identifying it from the expert from Indonesia for right now.
You can start with.
I haven't do it from Malaysia.
You can start with expert interview and documentation. So for documentation, it shouldn't be a problem, right? You can find cases in Malaysia, Indonesia, or any other countries for documentation, right?
Yeah.
If you use the library, if you use library research, you can easily find, right? The cases in Indonesia, the cases in Malaysia. There are many documents in the field of law. The problem is if you want to complement with
Islamic law.
expert opinions. For example, if you want to find the Sharia experts or the people sitting in the board of Sharia, for example, right? So the challenge is to identify who the experts are and to contact them, then to set an appointment. And before you do the interview, you must have the interview protocols. Interview protocols refer to the set of questions that you want to ask the expert. So
Guidance interview.
You need to discuss with your supervisor regarding the interview protocols. Who is your supervisor? I'm your supervisor, right?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
But I haven't make a communication with because of my health condition. So I'm still browsing with library studies.
Yes.
Documentation.
So we need to discuss the.
Until right now.
I need to look at the interview protocols.
Sure.
Interview protocols refer to the set of questions that you want to ask the expert.
I understand.
And then you can start with Indonesia first. Okay. Start with identifying the experts in Indonesia and make an appointment with them and try to interview. Once you get the data.
I'm still doing it, Professor Yusuf. I'm still doing it. But now I am countdown, just refresh for a while because I'm still not in a good health condition for right now.
Yes. Take it easy, take it slow. Don't worry too much about your thesis. Your health is more important.
Slow but sure, Professor.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Prof. Maybe there is
Most welcome.
Have a
Dr.
mistake
Sufyan,
with my
Dr. Sufyan, anything
Assalamualaikum
you want to add? We have 13 students. It is boring if only I speak. Okay. Any questions before we continue? So I think I explained already the problem statement, right? How you write the problem statement? It depends on.
I got a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Hello, Prof.
Yes, Cik Masri, go ahead.
Oftentimes most PhD student when they present in PD, the examiner will say, I cannot see the problem in your problem statement. Your problem statement is very weak.
Right,
Write your problem statement and others' problem. So can
right.
you maybe guide us how to write a good problem statement, and what are the technique or the skill we need to produce a clear, concise, precise problem statement? What are the method or the strategy in writing to highlight or to write a good problem statement?
Very
Thank
good
you.
question and very good suggestion. Okay, so it's true. In colloquium, in proposal defense, even in Viva, some examiner says, I cannot see your problem. What is your problem? So it goes back to the background of the examiner. If the examiner is from the applied school of thought, yeah, he or she wants to see the real world problem that needs solution. If the examiner comes from the pure research background, he wants to see what is it that we don't know, and what is it that we know, what is it that we don't know, that is called the research gap, and what are the specific area or topic that you want to observe. So that is the theory. So now let's go to how to write a good problem statement. First thing, like I said, we need to identify whether our research is pure research or applied research. Let's start with pure research, right? So to write a problem statement in pure research, so the question is, hey, my thesis is pure research or applied research? So that is a question. It depends on you. It depends on the nature of the research. But in the field of Islamic finance, it is primarily pure research. We want to identify what has been done in this area, and we want to identify what are the areas that has not been done, has not been studied, that we want to explore. Okay, but I'm not ruling out applied research. If you want to go for applied research, you want to find the real world problems, and you want to find the solutions to the real world problem, it's the researcher's choice. It's your choice. Okay, let's go with a pure research. how to write good problem statement in pure research. There are many ways, but this is my suggestion, right? This is my suggestion. Number one, you write about what is ideal. Now you write about what is the ideal situation, what it should be, or what is stated in the theory. That's step number one. All right, about what is the ideal situation means what it should be, or what the theory says. Okay, that's number one. So how to write? For example, I want to write about zakat, right? About the zakatability of income. Step number one, what is the ideal situation? So I write about the obligations to pay income zakat. Okay, the ideal situation is income zakat is compulsory for every Muslims eligible to pay zakat. If they are eligible, they must pay. And if everybody, if every Muslims eligible to pay zakat and they pay zakat, the ideal situation is zakat collection will be high, and zakat could help the asnafs. Okay, that is the ideal situation. So that's step number one. Step number two is the actual or the real situation, right? The actual situation refers to the gap between the ideal and the actual situation. Okay, the ideal situation is what? Zakat is compulsory. It is mentioned in the Quran. It is mentioned in the national fatwa. And every eligible Muslims must pay zakat. That is the ideal situation. However, the actual situation is what? The actual situation is most of the employees still do not pay zakat. Okay, that zakat collection is still very low, which means that the compliance of zakat is still very low. So there is a gap there. There is a gap there. The ideal situation is zakat should be very high. Zakat collection should be very high because paying zakat is a religious obligation. However, the gap is what? The gap is zakat collection is still very low because previous studies have provided evidence that zakat collection is very low. So the next step, okay, let me repeat. The first step is mention about the ideal situation, what it should be. Second step is to mention about the real situation in the real world and show that there is a gap between the ideal and the actual situation. Step number three, say something about what has been done in this topic. which is what is known. Okay, the boundary of knowledge. Mention 3 or 4 or 5 previous studies on this topic. What has been done? What we already know about this topic? So, for example, regarding the compliance behavior of zakat, there are some studies. Okay, for example, in this case, Zainal, Kamil, Faridawati, who did the study on compliance behavior and found that most of the employees did not pay zakat, although they paid tax. And there are studies also by, okay, for example, this guy, Raida, okay, that the total collection of zakat funds is still far behind the total collection of tax. Right. So there are. So you mentioned the third step. You mentioned about what has been done. What are the studies that has been done? Okay, these are another studies by Muhammad Rahim Arifin. Okay, who mentions that paying zakat is religious obligation. Okay, and then other studies. So you mentioned about what has been done by previous studies regarding this topic. Okay. The 1, 2, 3. The fourth step is you mentioned about what is it that you want to study. In brief, this is not the objective of the study. You just give a flavor, to the readers about what you want to study. For example, okay, for example, in this study, this researcher mentions, therefore, okay, after mentioning what has been done, right? After mentioning what has been done, then this researcher gives the reader a taste of what he wants to do. So he says, this study explores Muslim public school teachers by examining the motivations of zakat compliance behavior in order to study ways to improve the collection of income zakat in the future. How this researcher wants to study? First, the researcher just gives the taste of what he wants to study. And then he gives the taste, the dessert, okay? Not the main menu, the dessert of how. Very short, very brief. How this researcher wants to study? This researcher says, to do so, okay, to do so means to explore the motivations of zakat compliance behavior. To do so, can you see the sharing or not? Tak mau jadi syok sendiri ya. Mr. Hamzah, can you see the screen or not? The screen sharing.
Yeah, I can very clearly.
Can you
No
see it?
problem, Prof. Yeah, I
Okay.
can see.
So continue.
But I have to switch off the video.
So continue.
Yeah, please.
This researcher, after explaining or giving a taste to the reader of what he wants to do, okay, he wants to examine the motivations of zakat compliance. How? To do so, this study continues to extend the existing studies in the area of compliance behavior of zakat, which was started by Kamil Zainal. Okay, he says he just wants to extend the existing theories or existing studies in the area of zakat, which was started by who? Okay, he mentions the previous studies on this compliance behavior. And then he must also show that his study is not copy-paste of the previous studies, right? Must be different. Otherwise, you cannot do a research. So he says this study differs from Kamel, and this studies also differs from Zainal. So there is a contribution there. There is what you call the significance there, the significance of the study, because it extends what has been studied before. All right. Any questions? So let me repeat. How to write problem statement in pure research. Number one is what? Actual situation, what should be. Number two, number one, ideal situation. Number one, ideal situation, what should be. Number two, actual situation, what is happening in the real world, and show the gap. And number three, what has been done in this area. Number four, what the researcher wants to do. All right, in brief, just a taste, a dessert, right? What the researcher wants to do, how the researchers differs from the previous studies, how this study extends the boundary of knowledge. Okay. Yeah. Dr. Sufyan, mana Dr. Sufyan? Dia hari ni. Dr. Sufyan, you want to add something? If I miss. So for PhD, it depends on your examiner. It depends also on your supervisor. So for this person, right? In the proposal defense, the examiner says you need to put the real world problems, right? You need to add the real world problem. So this student, he wants to pass PhD, right? So he has to put the real world problem. So for the real world problem refers to the problem that really exists in the real world that needs solution. So this problem statement actually combines both the pure research and the applied research. So how do we incorporate the real world problem into the problem statement? Okay, for example, we can put
Excuse me, Prof.
Let me finish this one.
Okay, thank you.
So you can also combine problems from the perspective of pure research and problems from the perspective of applied research. For example, here this student it puts three issues or three problems from the real world problem. The first issue is the low collection of zakat among Muslims. Okay, and he provides the data. Okay, despite the fact that
Noise.
okay, let's continue. So you can also combine problems from pure research into the problems. So you can combine problems from pure and applied research. How? For example, after explaining the actual situation or the real world situation, you can also mention the real world issue. Again, it depends on your supervisor, it depends on the examiner. So in this case, the examiner wants to mention also the real world problem. So this student, he mentions three issues or three real world problems. The first issue, the low collection of income zakat because of the perception. Second issue, not all Muslims paid zakat in Kedah. Some of them paid zakat in other states. And the third issue, some of the Muslims showed lack of confidence in the ability of Kedah State Zakat Department. The fourth issue is some of the teachers perceived that paying zakat elsewhere was more beneficial to them. So those are called the real world problems or issues. So it is still okay to combine problems from the pure research perspective and also problems from the applied research perspective, depending on your supervisor and examiner. Bapak Prayogi, okay,
Yeah, Prof.
yes, you can ask questions.
Excuse me, Prof. The previous study should be the latest study or
Good question.
we can mention the
Preferably, the previous studies is the latest. Latest means within 5 years, right? Preferably. But there are some areas where you cannot find the most recent studies. In that case, you can also mention studies that was done, long time ago. If you cannot find the latest, give me one moment, please.
Baik, Prof.
Alright. So to answer your question, you should put the latest studies. However, if you cannot find, it's all right. You can put those studies that are longer than 5 years. If you cannot find the latest. Okay, any other question? Mr. Masri, any you need further clarification? Did I answer your question or not?
Okay, Prof. Well explained. Thank you.
Most welcome. Dr. Sufyan, you are very quiet today. Where are you? Siapa ada soalan boleh tanya? Bapak Royani,
Ya, okey.
boleh tanya soalan? Any question? Any comments?
Ya. Ini masih menyimak terus, Profesor.
Bagus. Sehat ya?
Ya, alhamdulillah.
Sekarang berada di mana?
Ada di kantor di Pelelangan.
Ya. Alhamdulillah masih boleh bekerja. Alhamdulillah.
Ya, alhamdulillah.
Ustaz Suraidi, ada soalan?
Betul.
Ya, ya.
Kat literature review tu, kalau kita ambil rujukan yang kurang daripada, maksudnya lebih daripada 5 tahun, dia mempengaruhi kita punya penulisan tu. Sebab kalau rujuk nampak yang lama-lama tu banyak kan.
Selalunya examiner akan kata kena banyakkan rujukan yang terkini. Tapi dia bergantung juga kepada tajuk kita kan. Ada setengah tajuk tak banyak kajian yang dibuat dalam masa 5 tahun kan. Jadi kita jawab je lah. Contohnya pengkaji mendapati hasil daripada kajian literatur setakat ini bahawa terdapat sedikit bahan rujukan yang ditulis dalam tempoh 5 tahun terkini. Jadi kita kena bagilah apa-apa justifikasi kan. Tapi secara umumnya examiner akan minta kita perbanyakkan kajian dalam tempoh 5 tahun lah. Kajian yang selepas 5 tahun tu boleh masuk juga. Tapi dia suruh perbanyakkan lah. Nak bagi peratus tak adil juga kan. Setengah bidang tu dia banyak kajian terkini kan. Dia boleh buh 80% kajian terkini boleh. Setengah bidang tu nak cari 50% kajian terkini pun berat kan. Tak banyak kan. Macam contoh, hari tu saya buat zakat. Kajian terkini tentang zakat memang tak banyak. Masa tu. Jadi saya masukkan kajian terkini tentang cukai, kepatuhan, gelagat kepatuhan tentang cukai. Juga saya masukkan. Asalkan tajuk gelagat kepatuhan. Jadi yang kita nak kaji tu kita kena pastikan tajuk kita apa. Macam tajuk ni gelagat kepatuhan zakat. Jadi dalam literature review saya juga masukkan gelagat kepatuhan zakat, gelagat kepatuhan cukai. Saya masukkan juga. Sebab saya dapati banyak kajian terkini tentang gelagat kepatuhan cukai. Jadi alhamdulillah diterima jugalah asalkan ada kaitan dengan tajuk kita lah. Walaupun tajuk sini gelagat kepatuhan zakat. Tapi alhamdulillah gelagat kepatuhan cukai pun diterima juga sebab dia ada gelagat kepatuhan tu. Jadi dapatlah saya masukkan banyak yang terkini lah. Jadi literature review tu kita boleh kaji apa-apa tajuk yang ada kaitan lah, yang ada sangkut tu boleh lah. Macam contoh kajian gelagat kepatuhan zakat. Kalau nak cari masa tu gelagat kepatuhan zakat yang terkini memang tak banyak lah.
Tak banyak, betul lah.
Jadi kita cari juga yang mana ada sangkut juga dengan tajuk tu.
Ya, Prof, mohon bagi pandangan lah.
Ya, silakan.
Isu mencari literature review yang terkini kan. So basically, a good literature review dari segi source tu dia mesti close to our phenomenon of study kan. Which is
Right,
closest to the topic of study lah.
right.
Sebab tu kadang-kadang kita tak dapat artikel yang terkini, tapi kajian yang lama tu sangat close to our own research kan, our own
Right.
contact. Yeah, so it's very sangat significant to our own study.
Right.
At the same time, it is important to have most recent research kan sebagai rujukan, right?
Right.
Dan selalunya examiner akan begitulah.
Ya, betul.
Try to find the latest one this year kan.
Betul.
Dan banyak kali we see that this student often claim lah. So in our own research, we say that from my finding, nobody do this, nobody talk about this. From my finding, it is not have been researched kan. Kita claim based on our own literature review that we develop. And ada kalanya juga examiner mungkin disagree. Are you sure? Are you sure what you're saying, right? I think in PhD level of research, it is important.
Be careful about your statement.
Yeah, true. It is important to have a very complete coverage of the topic. Complete coverage of the topic of the article that you find. So when you use maybe a few platform to find this research, you must not have what we call a point where you say this is already completed ataupun dah fully coverage lah. That means you have to explore other platform or other way how to say this is a recent one, how to say this is complete literature review. That's why nowadays kita ada banyak kaedah lah, macam sometimes kita tengok dalam Facebook ada doctorate support group kan.
Right.
This is where sometimes you tengok PhD student they ask for help among the research community. Say, I want to find this kind of article exists. So they post that question in the group. So there are many researchers willingly to help. So by doing that, you able to get most recent research. Sometimes you don't even know, right? So di sini it is important lah to have a widened resource to find this article, support group. Even kita di sini pun, even our own classmate ni pun boleh jadi satu group whereby we can help each other to find resources. Even maybe some of us having the same topics. So when you have the same topic, it is not wrong to share resources, especially those research article yang current dan sebagainya lah. Yeah, Prof, that's my thoughts on this issue.
Very good, very good. Actually, we discussed last time the need for students to register in doctoral support group, and the need for students to cooperate among ourselves. So that point is very well taken. So another good point that Mr. Masri just mentioned is sometimes during the process of doing PhD, for example, in colloquium 1, proposal defense, mock viva, some examiners, right? They have this subjective judgment. They say, oh, I think the literature review of the most recent is not enough. Just a subjective judgment. He or she might say something like that. You need to include more recent articles or research studies. It's a subjective judgment. There is no what we call clear cut. What is the percentage of the recent literature? Is it 50%, 60%? There's no such thing. So it's a subjective judgment. And another point that Mr. Masri said, you need to be very careful in your writing and also in your oral defense. It's a very good idea to avoid statement like, there is no studies in this area. It is a, you should avoid, you must avoid statements like that.
Why?
The researcher finds that there are limited number of literature on this topic. Avoid something like that. The researcher finds, because you are still a student. Statement like that should be avoided because it's most likely the examiners know more. The examiners know, they know more than you do. If you say, oh, there are not many studies, then the researcher will say, or the examiners will say, actually there are more. You read this, you read this, you read this, right? Especially if the examiner is in the area of research. For example, if the student says, oh, there are not many studies on the religiosity, for example, right? And suppose I am the examiner, I will tell him, okay, you have not cited any one of my studies on religiosity, and I have written 5 articles, 5 topics on Islamic religiosity, and you say there are not many, and you have cited none of my studies. So it's very dangerous and risky for students to say there are not many studies in this area. Avoid statements like that. Okay? And like we discussed before, in this group, we have some people who can help each other, right? So I find that our group is very quiet. So far, very quiet. So in the WhatsApp group, please ask as many questions as you want, right? Ask questions. Because maybe there are other students who can help you also. So I'm not the only one who can help you. There are other students who can help you also in this group. And
Especially the doctors.
also you can join Facebook doctoral support group. Go to Facebook and search doctoral support group and join doctoral support group. That's what I did when I was a student. I asked questions, and some of the questions are answered. It was very helpful, especially regarding complicated issues. PLSM. Okay, how to find journals and articles? I will share with you again some of the sources to get articles. There are links where you can get thesis and dissertations. There are links where you can get Scopus journals. There are links. There are many links, and I will share some of them. I think I shared before, but I will share it again. For those of you who joined late, I will share again. And in Unisham also, we have Emerald Publishing, where you can join and you can get many articles. And we will discuss more on this in the coming lecture. Right. And the easiest way, if you don't have access to e-library, you can go to Google Scholar, right? You can go to Google Scholar. Do I need to share or not? I think we discuss in the coming lecture when we talk about literature review. Actually, today's lecture is on writing chapter 1. All right. Very good questions. Can we continue? All right. Where are we? So, research questions and research objectives. How do you write research questions and research objectives? When you write research objectives and research questions, bear in mind that your research questions and research objective must be operationalized, means your research objectives can be achieved. In order to achieve your research objective, you must be able to measure. Okay, you must measure. You must collect. You must analyze to get the findings to answer the research objective. How do you write a research objective? It depends. It depends on the type of research, whether you are doing quantitative or qualitative research, whether you are doing deductive analysis or inductive analysis. Let's talk about quantitative research first. Okay, we discussed before what is quantitative research. So the best way to write specific objectives and research questions for quantitative research is it must be based on theory. It must be based on the theory. The researcher must be able to develop solid theoretical framework of the study. Once you have a solid theoretical framework of the study, inshallah, you'll be able to write research objective and research questions which are operationalizable, meaning the data can be measured, collected, and analyzed, and answer or achieve the research objective. How do we write? Okay, for example, in this case, this person write 6 specific objectives. How does he write? It cannot come from the air. It cannot fall down from the sky. It has to come from good theory, right? Okay, let me share with you the theory. This is the theoretical framework of the study. So this person develops a theoretical framework of the study based on previous theories. And he adapts and adopts from Eisen, Camille, Zainal, and Ram al-Jafri. So in this theoretical framework, there are 5 IVs, 4 independent variables, right? It has 1 mediating variable. This is the dependent variable, and this is the moderating variable. So how the...
Excuse me, Prof.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
This is quantitative.
This theoretical framework is, yeah, I know. Now, this theoretical framework is developed by our individual, yeah, meaning that everybody can develop this framework, based on their, variable. Is it correct?
Based on the previous theory. Yes, based on the previous studies.
Prof tanya, yang dalam framework tu kan, moral obligation tu, macam mana Prof pilih yang masukkan dalam apa framework tu?
Okay.
Sorry, lama hilang baru muncul balik.
Tadi hilang. Jadi mana-mana
Saya nak tanya dekat problem statement lagi tapi accept tak okey kan.
Okay, boleh
accept
ulang
tak
balik.
okey tu, saya hilang lama. Macam mana Prof masukkan variable tu, Prof? Moral obligation tu.
Okay, good question. Jadi kita bila buat PhD kan, kita nak cari macam contribution lah. Contribution of our study kan. Which means our study has to differ from previous studies. Jadi saya pun duk carilah kan. So macam mana nak bagi ada kita punya contribution lah. So saya kata di sini, this theoretical framework is adopted from Eisen, Kamil, Zainal, and Ram Al-Jafri, and based on deductive reasoning. This study uses deductive reasoning to expand the theoretical framework and to add new variables to the theoretical framework as suggested by Kajaluoto, Matila, and Pento 2002. Jadi Kajaluoto, Matila, and Pento ni dia cadangkan untuk menambah apa-apa new variables kepada theoretical framework menggunakan kaedah deductive reasoning. Okay, apa dia deductive reasoning? Deductive reasoning maksudnya kita kena melihat kajian-kajian lain untuk kita come up with a proposed theoretical framework. Jadi untuk kita tambah new variables to improve the current theoretical framework, kita kena melihat juga kepada kajian-kajian yang lepas. Ada tak orang lain yang pernah masukkan variable ni? Dan kenapa kita masukkan variable ni? It must be justified. Okay, jadi macam mana nak justify? Okay, so kena justify lah kat sini. Kenapa masukkan moral obligation? Okay, jadi saya jawab di sinilah. Moral obligation is incorporated in this study because it reflects intrinsic motivation to perform a certain behavior. Therefore, it is expected to influence the intention to comply with certain behavior. Breath, weight, toggler, arm and toggler, and hala supported this relationship. Jadi, kenapa moral obligation dimasukkan? Sebab dia moral obligation ni dia reflects intrinsic motivation to perform certain behavior. Moral obligation ni bukan sesuatu yang wajib dilakukan, tapi seseorang tu bila dia ada intrinsic motivation, dia akan lakukan sesuatu itulah. Contoh moral obligation ni dia dimasukkan dalam ethics. Contoh moral obligation. Ada gangguan sikit. Contoh moral obligation, seseorang tu berjalan, dia berjalan kemudian dia nampak, saya cakap English for the benefit of others. An example of moral obligation is when suppose someone is walking and then he saw a person drowning in the pond, right? So he wants to help or not? So he will help if he has the moral obligation or the intrinsic motivation to save that person. If he doesn't have moral obligation, then he doesn't help. He will say, all right, it's not my obligation to help. Okay, I'm not going to be punished if I don't save that person. All right, so moral obligation is different from religiosity in the sense that people who are religious, okay, may or may not be morally responsible. Conversely, some people, they are morally responsible, but they are not very religious. Ada orang tak semayang, tapi kalau bab tolong orang ni, oh dia bagus, rajin tolong orang. Gitu lah contohnya kan. So, dari segi research, kita kena justify kenapa kita letak formulir buah baru. Kena ada justification dan kena tunjuk ada tak orang lain yang kaji. Tak cukup kalau kita sendiri rasa benda tu perlu dimasukkan. Dia juga kena ditunjukkan bahawa ada kajian-kajian lain juga yang telah memasukkan moral obligation. Kemudian kita kena develop hypothesis. Okay, kat sini. Okay. Dr. Sufian, lepas tu tugas berat jugalah. Bila kita masukkan, when we add new variables to the theoretical framework, we need to develop the hypothesis. Oh, yang ni berat jugalah. So kita kena
hypothesis tu semua sekali kan, Prof kan? Semua variable kan?
Betul. Cuma saya nak tunjuk yang moral obligation tu lah. Yang lain pun kena develop. Jadi saya baca lah. So for every variables, researcher needs to...
Prof, sorry Prof.
Yeah, go ahead.
Apa berkenaan dengan soalan Dr. Sofian tadi, and you already explain how you decided to include moral obligation, dan yang kita lihat tadi adalah when other researcher dia orang dah include variable tu dalam dia punya study, more than one researcher kan, ramai. So we justify, we include that variable dalam kita punya theoretical. And kalau kita tengok research yang lain, there are many other new variable which is included dalam TPB. Dia ada banyak lagi lah. So from that many variable, we decided to take moral obligation. I wonder whether it is enough kalau kita nak kata kerana orang ni buat, I nak buat juga sebab I ada basis kerana dia orang telah buat. Or is it we have maybe there are other better justification, such as does the variable that we selected align dengan research problem, for example, align dengan objective, for example, because of my nature of research problem or my context of the respondent or the population of study. This variable has to be this new variable has to be included in the theoretical framework, and later on it is also backed up by previous research. So there are more than one justification kat situ. I wonder whether that is also a method lah kalau kita nak include that new variable, Prof.
Right, that's a very good comment. Yeah, I remember the examiners also make that kind of comment. For example, you must justify the inclusion of new variables from the perspective of deduction means the variables that you include must have its significance in the environment or in the context of your research. For example, this context of the study is the compliance behavior of income zakat. So you need to justify first why is it significant in the context of your research. And secondly, right, we can cite a previous study, and there is one good method called beta analysis, which I didn't do. Some examiner, they require, okay, you must show, you must elaborate on the beta analysis. And thirdly, you are right. It's a very good idea if you can also justify in terms of the problem statements besides the context of the study, right? And for PhD, it has to be what do you call? What's the word? Novelty. You have to have novelty, right? So what does novelty means? Novelty comes from the word noble, right? Noble. Noble means what you do is original, meaning unique, and has not been done before, right? So for PhD, the inclusion of variables must be justified. So that's very important. So you must justify in the, after you write the theoretical framework. So every variable or every construct that you include in the theoretical framework must be justified here. All right. And then you must develop the hypothesis regarding the relationship between each of the IV to mediating, from mediating to dependent variable, and also your moderating variable, if any. So for example, the first IV is attitude. So you must develop the hypothesis regarding attitude. Second, hypothesis development of subjective norm, the second IV. Third, hypothesis development of perceived behavioral control. Fourth, yeah, this is a moral obligation. So let me read this one. How to write hypothesis development? We can start with defining the variable for the purpose of the study. Moral obligation is defined as a duty to pay income zakat arising out of ethical considerations of right and wrong. Because moral is about doing what is right. In the context of income zakat compliance, there is a moral responsibility felt by some Muslim teachers, but not by others. Although this variable was not included in the original TPB, it is added in this study because the Muslim teacher's personal belief about what is morally right and wrong could influence their intention to pay income zakat. There are studies such as blah, 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 that tested the influence of moral obligation on intention. This guy provided evidence that low moral obligation leads to non-compliance towards tax payment in the case of tax. And Togler mentions that individuals in the United States had high tax morale. Kemudian, okay. So these are the studies that included moral obligation in the environment of tax compliance behavior. And then sometimes we need to differentiate between the variables. The difference between moral obligation and attitude, and also the difference between moral obligation and religiosity. So based on those elaborations, this study predicts that moral obligation has a significant positive influence on the intention to pay income zakat. Okay, that is an example. So for your own thesis, all right, if you include the variables in the theoretical framework, right? So you must justify after the theoretical framework, immediately after, you must justify the inclusion of each of the variables, and you must develop hypotheses. Nowadays, there are tendencies among PhD students to combine the underpinning theory. So this study actually adapts and adopts TPB by Eisen. Nowadays, there are tendencies for PhD students to combine, for example, combine TPB with TAM, Technology Acceptance Model, combine TPB with UTAUT, combine TPB with DIT, Diffusion Innovation Theory. If you ask me, I say it's a very good idea because it can have more significant contributions to the knowledge. All right, what time is it? Okay, we have about 20 more minutes. Dr. Sofian, okey lah, jawapan tu okey lah. Sikit-sikit boleh jawab.
Boleh. Cuma nak tanya, nak tanya macam tadi kita moral obligation, kalau kita tengok references tu macam untuk teks kan, tapi tak apalah kita tengok dari konteks zakat lah maksudnya kan.
Ya.
Moral obligation tak di references dia tu dekat-dekat pelaksanaan teks kan. Tapi kita bawa ke arah zakat lah kan.
Ya.
Okay. So macam Islamic religiosity pun sama juga, dia konteks dia dekat Christianity kan, kita bawa ke arah Islamik lah macam tu ke macam tu ya Prof?
Yang ni saya rasa my big contribution kat sini lah. Secara umumnya kajian tentang compliance behavior of zakat menggunakan religiosity yang di-adapt and adopt from Western perspective. Okay. Maksudnya, sebelum kajian ini, before this study, the religiosity measure or the religiosity construct was adopted from Western. Contohnya kalau according to Western perspective, siapa yang religious? Religious are those people who go to church every Sunday. Religious people are those who go to church, who are in the committee members of the church. Religious people are those who contribute lots of fun to the church, and so on and so on. So we adopt. So from that one, we adopt and become Islamic religiosity. Who are religious people? From Islamic point of view, those people who go to Friday prayers, okay, adopt from Sunday prayer to Friday prayer. Those people who are the committee members, those people who contribute to Masjid Fund, and so on and so on. So those are called religiosity from Islamic perspective. In this study, the religiosity is completely different and has nothing to do with the religiosity measurement of the previous studies. So from Islamic point of view, kalau banyak sedekah pun tak mestinya dia religious. Kalau dia jadi AJK masjid, tak semestinya dia religious. Dia pergi sembahyang Jumaat, tak mesti dia religious. Dia wajib. So, religiosity ni apa? So, kita buat completely new instruments lah, we developed. And I adapt and adopt from Krauss. According to Krauss, religiosity is measured from three dimensions: aqidah, ibadah, and akhlak. Kita ukur dia punya aqidah dia macam mana, ukur dia punya ibadah dia macam mana. Semaya ibadah wajib, ada ibadah sunat. Kemudian dia punya akhlak, ukur dia punya akhlak dia. Itu baru religiosity from Islamic point of view. Sebab Krauss adopt from Imam Al-Ghazali dan kita pun adopt daripada Krauss. Krauss ada lebih daripada 100 measurement of religiosity, 100 items. So dalam kajian ni saya pilih 18 instruments yang memang pass through the validity and reliability test. Okay. Any other question? Actually, our topic today is how to write chapter 1. Tapi sebabkan ada question, it's alright.
Yeah.
It's alright. You have questions, so I answer your question.
Yeah. Okay. So can I ask one question?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. What is the thought to be? To determine what method that we have to go. Like myself, first I decided quantitative, but probably, when you told us that it need record, it need, statement, etc., which is to me, for the interviewing, meeting with people for this time being is very challenging. Then thinking about what about quantitative. So what is the basic, aspect or reason to select or to determine which method the best one?
Okay. So the question is, should we choose quali should we choose quanti? Pening
Yes.
ni, yang
Oh,
mana?
quanti. Yes.
Yang mana nak pilih ni? Nak
Ya,
guna
mana
quanti
ni?
ke? Nak guna
Ya,
quali
betul.
ke? Masih
Ya,
masih pening lagi ya.
ya, karena many challenges.
Dapat
Ya,
decide
bikin
lagi
pening.
which one. Dah
Uh-uh.
tengah-tengah dah ni.
Iya, akhirnya finally we have two mix, right?
Yes. So the
So,
choice of quali and quanti usually depends
Yeah.
on
quanti,
past experience.
objective.
Yeah, to set objective also depends on the researcher's background and researcher's past experience. Usually, if the researchers are used to qualitative, he or she will more likely choose the qualitative. If the researcher is more familiar with the quanti, he or she will more likely choose the quanti. Just like Dr. Sofyan, he's familiar with quanti, so he's more likely to choose the quanti, right? Although,
Yes. Because
although
it depend on the researcher actually.
yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's just like something abstract, yeah. I mean, yeah, because of the preference, yeah. There is no guidance.
Because of the background, because of the past experience. So if he or she, have more background, have more experience in doing quali, so he or she can choose quali. So it's actually the choice of the researcher. Some people, they are more familiar with quanti, so they can choose quanti. But of course, you can do mixed method. Sometimes if the quantitative method is not sufficient to answer or to achieve the research objective, then quali can complement the quanti approach. So, Ibu,
any ideal percentage? I mean, if we do both, mix, yeah, we do mix. Is there any ideally number for quantitative and qualitative? Quanti and quali. For example, you ask us to get 400, right, respondent, and then ideally it has to be 200 or 300 quanti, 100 quali. If quali, called as complementary. So meaning it's not less important because it's just complementary. It's just a strengthening, the quantitative. So is there any idea?
Okay, first of all, you need to justify why you want to use quanti, why you want to use quali, why you want to use a mixed method.
Quali.
Okay. Secondly, regarding the number of respondents, so for quanti and quali, you must choose the proper sampling method and the proper sample size. Some people, they say, oh, for quanti, you must have sampling method. For quali, you don't have to have sampling method. That perception is not correct. For both quanti and quali, researchers need to choose the sampling approach and sampling size. There are many sampling techniques in quantity and also in quality. So you cannot say, oh, for quantity, you must have 500, 400, 300. No. You choose the sample size based on the sample size criteria, which we will cover in the coming lecture. How to choose the sampling technique,
Okay.
and how to choose the sampling size. Is it necessary to do mixed research method? No, it's not necessary. Most often, one is enough, quantity is enough, or quality is enough. If it's enough, then it's enough.
Okay.
However, depends on the supervisor, depend on the examiner. They ask you to complement, right? Usually, they suggest you to complement if the empirical evidence that you provide does not really answer your research question and does not achieve the research objective. If it can answer the research question and achieve the research objective, then it is enough. If it's enough, then it's enough. No need to add. You add only when it's not enough. Right, Dr. Sufian? Kalau dah cukup, okey lah. Kalau tak cukup, jangan kita tambahkan.
Betul. Betul. Dalam tak tahu pengalaman saya lah, kalau tengok orang buat mixed method ni, seeloknya untuk PhD atau master kita pilih salah satu lah, baru dia macam deep enough, baru dia mendalam lah kalau kita pilih salah satu. Kalau kita buat mixed method, saya tengok kawan-kawan saya yang buat tu kan, dia macam, dia bahagian kuanti pun dia ada kekurangan sikit, dia bahagian kuali pun dia tak sempat nak mendalami dalam masa 3 tahun tu lah. Jadi kalau tanya saya, seeloknya pilih salah satu lah, baru kita dapat masuk in deep level for satu method lah. Macam Prof kata, kalau dia dah menjawab persoalan kita, cukup lah kot kan. Tapi kalau mungkin untuk buat FIJS kan boleh buat dua-dua tu, tak apalah, itu untuk geran kan. Untuk research ni, saya cadangkan pilih salah satu lah yang kita suka buat lah.
Suka buat ya.
Yang kita
Prof,
ya.
ada my friend yang ada pengalaman. Dia pakai kuantitatif. Bila dia dah buat data collection tu, dia punya SV cadangkan untuk dia buat mixed method, sebab dia dapati bahawa data yang dia ada tu macam ada gap, ada something that need to be explored through interview.
Right.
Walaupun dia dah start dengan kuantitatif, tapi bila sampai ke tahap tu, ada SV advice, you need to do a bit of interview, sebab dia ada benda yang dia perlukan untuk dia punya objektif dia lah. Jadi research tu, research problem tu. So benda tu selepas dia dah buat kuanti.
Right. Sometimes depends on supervisor. Bila supervisor rasakan, when the supervisor feels like the evidence does not fully answer the research question and does not fully achieve the research objective, then the supervisor might ask the student to complement with something else. For example, with qualitative method. Sometimes also in the process, for example, in the PD or Viva or even Viva, the examiner will suggest to do the mixed method, right? So as a student, we want to get PhD, so we just follow. We just do whatever that is suggested. But the point that Dr. Sufyan makes is valid because at PhD, the analysis must be deep. It has to be noble, and it must be as comprehensive as possible. For example, if you do PLS-SEM or MO-SEM, right? So as of today, it is a very deep analysis because it covers diagnostic checking, it covers validity and reliability of the instruments, so that the instruments that are analyzed has significant statistical inference. In other words, it's a more valid and better model compared to PLS, because compared to multiple regression analysis, right? Which has many constraints of its own. Let me repeat, multiple regression analysis has many limitations and many constraints of its own. Right. So for PhD, if there is a better analysis, you choose a better analysis, right? Some people say, oh, I just want to do multiple regression. Yes, but if there is another, right, another approach that that can do a deeper analysis and that can provide more valid empirical evidence, then you choose the ones that is better, because multiple regression analysis has many limitations and many constraints compared to SEM, simultaneous equation modeling. Yeah, you choose the one which is better. What do you think, Dr. Sofyan?
So betul lah tu yang Pro explain tu betul, betul lah kan. Maksudnya kalau kita compare dengan multiple regression, SEM ni dia ada procedure, strict procedure, kita punya procedure daripada awal, development atau validity of the instrument sampai ke last punya designate checking tu dia ada procedure dia. Dan procedure tu memang ambil masa lah sebab kena buat procedure tu kan, satu persatu tu kan. So kalau buat yang tu pun 3 tahun dah memang penuh lah. Kalau buat lah kan.
So kalau maksudnya kita dapat buat dengan PLSM ke AMOS, bila kita dapat dia punya result, kita boleh say dengan confident tentang apa-apa statistical inference yang kita nak buat. Sebab dia dah go through many procedure, many testing. Ya, data yang nak kita analyze pun kita dah determine dia punya validity, reliability, dah buat diagnostic checking, dah buat apa ni, other test kan, baru kita analyze. Dan bila analyze pun kita analyze dengan dalam bentuk simultaneous movement kan, simultaneous movement. This one we can discuss in the coming lecture. Alright. Actually, today's topic is on writing chapter 1. Okay, so let me quickly review. So what are the things that you need to write in chapter 1? Basically, you need to write overview, background of the study. Okay, overview, right? Background of the study, problem statement, research questions, research objective, scope of the study, significance of the study, contributions of the study, limitations of the study, and structure of the thesis. 9 subtopics. This is
Second, only
a
7,
typical.
Prof.
It doesn't have to be 9. I mean, some people
From
have
the
less.
previous. Okay.
This is just
Yeah.
the normal or the
Yeah.
typical
If we follow
subtopic
the
in
guidance.
literature review. You are
Okay.
free to change a little bit depending on where the type of research, quali
Okay.
or quanti. So this is
Okay.
just what they say. This is the typical topic in chapter 1. If you decide you want to change a little bit, it's still all right.
Prof, untuk problem statement tadi, Prof,
Yeah.
macam memang kita sepatutnya kena ada something data kan, statistik sikit. Macam
Right.
Prof masukkan bilangan orang yang apa ni, bayar zakat tu kurang tu kan. Dia
Right.
memang kena masukkan statistik lah kan, maksudnya kan.
Right. In general, every statement kena ada support. So either you put in statistic or you can cite statistic provided by other studies. Kat sini ada tak saya masukkan statistik? Lupa. So the idea is any statement that you make, it must be supported. For example, kalau kita kata zakat collection in Malaysia is still low, kita kata kutipan zakat di Malaysia ni rendah lah. Tak boleh kata macam tu. So sama ada kita tunjukkan data ataupun kita boleh cite the previous studies. Macam ni Zainal Kamil Faridawati ni lama punya. Raidah Jamil, okay. So we can cite. So macam mana kita support kita punya statement depends. Kita boleh tunjukkan dengan data. We can show for example, the data of zakat collection. Or we can cite previous studies that support our statement. Okay, macam sini nak kata zakat ni meningkat tapi masih tak cukup. Okay. Kita tak boleh simply kata zakat ni dah meningkat tapi masih tak cukup. Kita kena support. Yet according to Sani Harun, head of corporate unit Kedah State Department of Zakat, although there has been an increasing trend in the collection of business zakat, padi zakat and income zakat, there were still a lot of Muslims in Kedah who have not paid zakat to Kedah State Zakat. So much so that the present increase in the collection of zakat is not sufficient for distribution to all asnaf because of the increasing number of zakat asnaf. Kita tak boleh kata je. Kita kena support. Contoh ni, Sinar Harian 2014. Okay. Jadi kita boleh support dengan data atau support dengan previous studies. Okay, soalan lain? Last question kot?
Prof satu lagi
Ya,
untuk
ya.
tu kita kan kena komen kan orang lain punya, ataupun kita kena, dia panggil kritik kan. Tapi kadang-kadang kita tak boleh kritik yang negatif terhadap orang tu lah, sebab kadang orang tu yang baca, kita sebagai examiner tak boleh, mungkin kita tak boleh cakap bahawa this paper is tak bagus sebab negatif kan. Mungkin kita kata this paper can improve in certain area. Sebab kadang-kadang macam saya pernah jadi reviewer, orang tu komen saya punya paper, saya adalah dia punya reviewer kan. So memang macam itulah kadang. Takut kita give a negative explanation, tiba orang tu jadi kita punya examiner, memang habis lah. Macam tu lah kan.
Betul.
Betul lah. So kalau kita buat literature review tu, seeloknya kita berhati-hati dengan perkataan yang kita guna. Kadang dia boleh menjadi salah seorang kita punya panel lah, macam tu lah.
Saya ingat supervisor saya pesan, bila buat literature review, remember, dia kata, remember, you are still a student. Maksudnya bila kita nak komen, kita buat literature review kan kita nak synthesize, nak compare and contrast. Kadang artikel tu ditulis oleh profesor kan. Jadi kita tak boleh kata sesuatu yang negatif. Kita cuba kata dalam bentuk yang positif. My supervisor said, remember, you are a student. Maksud tu mendalam lah. Maksud tu kita ni tak ada authority lagi untuk nak kritik orang lain. Tu maksud dia. Who are we? We are still student. Who are you to critique yang ditulis oleh profesor, contoh kan. So remember, you are still a student. That's what my supervisor said to me when I was writing the literature review. So right, like Dr. Sofian said, when we write and review past studies, remember, we are students. We can compare and contrast, we can synthesize, and we can also comment on the literature gap, right? So that's what we do. Do not make any negative comments. Okay? Do not make any negative comments. We can compare and contrast.
Don't make evaluation ya, Prof ya.
The gap, yeah. We can show the gap. It's very good idea. Remember, when you do the literature review, don't forget to not only compare and contrast, but also to show the literature gap. Meaning, the literature gap you can find in the recommendations section of the study. Some author they recommend what future studies should do, so that can be part of the literature gap. Okay, I think that's all the time we have for today. If you have any further questions, you can ask in our group. Any questions? And hopefully when someone asks, okay, others can also answer the questions. I'm not the only one who can answer the question. So it is better that we support each other, we help each other in the group. Okay, orang lain pun tolong jawab sama lah. Kerana mungkin saya tak sempat nak jawab. Alright, so thank you everyone for attending and participating in this class. If you have any questions, please ask in our group. Oh, and I will give you the link to our Google GC, to our Google Classroom.
Prof, kalau boleh bagi form boleh, form nak PD Prof.
Oh, saya lupa. Sorry. Oh, ada form. Sekejap lagi saya bagi. Lupa.
Terima kasih.
Sama. banyak sangat kerja kan, lepas tu lupa. Kalau saya lupa remind dalam grup atau remind personally.
Also
So
this one, yeah, Prof. Is it the one that you sent to us long time ago? This document.
yes, I sent to you the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
same
the
thing.
same
Okay.
document.
Okay, thank you. Then I find out.
Okay, thank you everyone.
Yeah, thank you very much, Prof.
You can
for
view
time.
this video,
You're
inshallah,
welcome.
very soon, tonight or tomorrow,
Okay.
in the channel.
Ya,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
You're welcome, Prof.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good Saturday night, weekend.
Have a nice weekend.
Stay safe,
Keep
everybody.
safe, healthy, and safe.
Get-
Thank you, Prof.
Get
Thank you, everyone.
get well
Segera
soon.
sehat, Ibu Susi.
Stay healthy and safety.
Semoga semua sehat. Get well
Amin.
soon.
Amin,
Ibu
amin.
Susi, Ibu Mutiara.
Siap, Prof.
Oke, Prof. Salam sehat untuk semua.
Bu Susi dengan
Ya, Bu Mutia.
prokes ketat, Bu Susi.
Iya.
Sesama
Masih
LC, kita sesama LC, lulus COVID.
Saya belum lulus, Bu. Saya masih positif.
Oh my
Oh,
God.
gitu. Oh, iya.
Sorry.
Saya tempo hari juga, Ibu. Saya ini hari ke-16, tapi alhamdulillah sudah.
Oh, alhamdulillah.
Di Malang saya di Malang.
Oh iya, Pak. Ya, salam sehat untuk semua.
Ya,
Jaga
hati-hati.
prokes.
Oke.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi
Waalaikumsalam.
wabarakatuh.
Assalamualaikum
Warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Prof. Yusuf, let me
Assalamualaikum
leave
warahmatullahi
to the
wabarakatuh.
class because take a pray for Zuhur.